Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of my video blog series, Do You Know What I Know? Last week we got to talk about the magi, who they were, what they did, why the heck they were actually visiting Jesus in the first place. Today we're going to talk about the star that they were following, what do we know about that exactly, and then we're also going to talk about the significance and the meaning behind their gifts. So first off, we're going to talk about that star, that tricky little star. There's a lot of songs which talk about the star. Here are some lyrics which I found. Way up in the sky, little lamb, do you see what I see? A star dancing in the night with a tail as big as a kite. Doesn't really sound like a star to me. I don't know about you. Here's another one. Field and fountain, morn fountain, following yonder star. Another one, O star of wonder, star of night, star of royal beauty bright, so it's pretty. Westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. So, interesting. The star. There is a star which they see, there's a star which maybe as big as a kite, or has tail like a kite at least. So what the heck is this star? Why were these... What do we know about this? Well, one thing that we have to understand first off is that since this is ancient literature that we're reading right now in the Bible, is they don't really know very much about stars. They don't know anything about planets or galaxies or the rotation system or the axis of the Earth. They don't know any of that. Anything that's in the sky that's bright, unless it's the moon or the sun, it's a star. Those are their three basic principles and understanding of the entire stellar starscape. If it's a little tiny bright dot, it's a star. That's all they know. So let's look in the Bible and see what we see. Matthew, verse 7, it talks about Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. Okay? So, and then let's see. So, and then he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the young child. So, when the wise men heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star, which they had seen in the east, went before them. So this thing's moving, till it came and stood over where the young child was. And when they saw the star, they were rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. So they were stoked out of their minds to see this thing. It was moving, and then it stopped. So what the heck is this thing? The short answer is I have no idea, to be completely honest. I don't. These ancient writers didn't understand exactly what it is. They saw as a bright light that was seemingly more or less the size of a star, so it wasn't too large as far as we understand, because they knew the difference between the sun and the moon and the star, so we can guess that it is relatively small. But it also moved and stopped. So, what's going on? Well, it could be, here's a speculation, I'm just spitballing here, is that God set in place before time began, obviously, this position of the stars, and as these wise men saw and read the constellations and followed the coordinates, so to say, to Bethlehem, that star, depending on the position of the earth and the position of the stars, they saw it and it was moving across the sky for them towards a western movement, and it was prominent, whatever it was, because it stood out amongst all the other stars. And that whole tail as big of a kite business, I think it's just a song lyric because it sounded cool. But we do know that it moved and then it stopped. So my best guess is that it was the rotation of a constellation in conjunction to what we see from the Earth. And it was very prominent. It could have been a supernova of some kind, which we don't know. But whatever it is, we do know that God set it in place so that these men would read it at that time and understood that sign meant that there was going to be a great ruler, and it stood long enough that they're able to follow it and have it guide them to Bethlehem and be confirmed by the priests who were under Herod. So that's what we know about the star. Hopefully I didn't burst your bubble there. I'm not all-knowing. But what I do know is some cool stuff about the gifts. So we have 3 gifts: frankincense, gold, and myrrh. And why? Why 3 gifts? Why frankincense, gold, and myrrh? Well, Matthew in verse 11, chapter 2 says, and when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary and his mother. We're going to talk about that later as well. And fell down and worshipped him. We're going to talk about that later as well. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So we have these wise men, 2 or more, who came and were from the east, were non-Jewish, and were worshiping the young child, not a baby, in his home, and presented to him gifts. So there's a lot going on, but we're only going to talk about the gifts right now. So gold, what the heck is, well, we know what gold is. It's very shiny and it's very pretty, but what did it represent? And why were they giving it to him? Well, if you saw and understood that there's going to be a great world-changing ruler, you wanted to pay homage to him. You wanted to make sure you gave your due respect. And so, like any royalty, you would give someone who was of that great of stature gold. So gold was a symbol of his royalty. He was a king. He was a ruler. Therefore, you gave him the due respect that was honored to him. Myrrh is really interesting. Myrrh is an embalming ingredient that was used by Egyptians, and its main usage was that of perfume. Myrrh was also one of the spices that was used to prepare Jesus' body when he was being placed in the tomb. It was myrrh and aloes that were mixed together. So it was something which was used primarily to get rid of bad smells for the Egyptians, as a preservation for the dead, for the Jews as a scent covering for their dead, and it was just generally a good smelling thing. Liquid myrrh was used as an ingredient, this is where it gets really interesting, for holy anointing oil. So in Exodus 30 we see that there was a mixture that was put together, and it was set aside, it was sanctified, it was set apart as a sacred anointing oil to be used only in the temple for things that were going to be presented to God, and used as instruments as the priest. So the myrrh, when you boil it down, was a symbol of his sufferings. So lastly, we have frankincense. Now frankincense is really interesting because it was an aromatic ingredient that was used as a mixture with for sacrificial incense in the tabernacle in the temple of God. And Exodus 30 says how this mixture, which frankincense was a part of, would be used as a sacred mixture and would be considered holy to the Lord. So this was a sacred incense that was to be used, which this was a part of, that was only ever to be used for God in the temple. So frankincense, as some believe, is a symbol for his divinity. So we have a symbol of royalty with the gold, we have a symbol of sufferings with the myrrh, and we have a symbol of his divinity with the frankincense. So I really highly doubt that the wise men understood the depth and meaning behind their gifts, but it's beautiful to see that God would use so many different aspects and so many little things that add together and stack up to represent the life of Jesus and who he was and all the things that he was going to accomplish. It's quite remarkable. Some other possible meanings behind the gifts were that that they were designed and to express his divine and human nature, and that they respectively represented his prophetical life, which was represented by the myrrh, his priestly aspect, which was represented by frankincense, and his kingly aspect, which was by his gold. And all this was representations of the Jewish Messiah. Now, that was some really cool stuff, and we also still need to talk about exactly how old was Jesus when the multiple magi came and found him. The significance behind the fact that they were non-Jews coming to give honor and worship to a Jewish Messiah. Who exactly was at Jesus' birth, and where did the shepherds come in, and did a sheep really talk? Join us next time as we continue this riveting conversation. Hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.